A thin, high-pitched cry sliced through the quiet of Riverwood Park like a blade. Art Peterson stopped, feeling his heart hammer against his ribs. He saw a man holding a puppy suspended in mid-air, shaking it. The pup, struggling against the brutal force, let out a desperate yelp that was almost swallowed by the violence. "Let go of that dog." Art's voice was shaky, but he stepped forward. The man turned, his eyes cold and menacing, and walked toward him. Everything changed the moment Art pulled the puppy into his arms. No one present that day would ever forget what happened next. Art's hands trembled as he felt the warmth of the tiny body pressed against his chest. The pup was breathless, its eyes wide with terror, its small paws searching for a safe place to cling to. Its thick, golden tan coat, typical of a young Alaskan Malamute, was soiled with dirt and tears, and a raw red mark on its neck showed where a cruel force had squeezed it. "What you gonna do about it, old man?" The man spoke with a slurred, sneering voice. He was tall, powerfully built, and a thick snake tattoo wrapped around his left forearm. The heavy smell of cigarette smoke clung to him like a toxic cloud. "This is my dog. Hand him over." Art felt the heavy weight of his 68 years on his back, but the true strength he had always carried, the strength of a man who had raised 3 children alone, surged back. "Yours?" Art asked, his voice firming. "This pup is injured. You will never lay a hand on him again." The park was mostly deserted. The sunset painted the sky orange and pink, a beautiful yet ironic contrast to the scene unfolding. A few people walked the paths near the distant pond, oblivious to the confrontation near the blooming cherry trees. The man took a step closer. "Don't be a hero, Pops. You know who you're talking to?" Art instinctively backed away, shielding the puppy. His heart pounded irregularly, but he couldn't simply hand over this small life. Not after seeing the despair in those brown eyes, not after feeling the tremors in the tiny body. "I know exactly who I'm talking to," Art answered, surprised by the steadiness of his own voice. "A coward who preys on the weaker than himself." Tension thickened the air. The wind rustled the leaves, and for a moment, the only sound was the pup's whimpering. Then, the man lunged, hand outstretched, eyes filled with malice. It was in that instant everything changed. A massive bark echoed through the air. It wasn't an ordinary bark, it was low, powerful, and commanding. From behind the bushes emerged a magnificent, large dog with a dense black and tan double coat and a proudly curled tail. It was a German Shepherd, and its posture held no blind aggression, only clear purpose. The dog stepped between Art and the man, body coiled, gaze locked. It hadn't growled yet, but the message was obvious: do not come any closer. The man hesitated, the sneer on his face morphed into something closer to fear. "What the hell is that?" From behind the German Shepherd, a woman appeared. She looked about 35, wearing a ponytail and jogging gear, but what held the eye was her stance, unyielding and decisive. She instantly took in the scene, the old man holding an injured puppy, the menacing brute, and the charged air. "Is there a problem?" she asked, her voice quiet but carrying weight. It was not a question of curiosity, but of presence. The man looked at the dog, then the woman, and calculated his options. None seemed appealing. "None of your business," he muttered, already backing away. "It became my business the moment I saw you threatening an elderly man and a defenseless animal," she replied, crossing her arms. "Shall I call the police now, or will you walk away?" Silence returned, but its quality was different. The German Shepherd took a single step forward. One step was enough. The man spat on the ground, cursed under his breath, and turned his back, storming off down the paved path toward the park exit. Art let out a shaky sigh, not realizing he'd been holding his breath. His legs were still trembling, adrenaline coursing through his veins, but the puppy was safe in his arms. The woman approached, the German Shepherd now walking calmly beside her. "Are you all right?" Art nodded, unable to speak for a few seconds. When the words finally came, they were hoarse. "Thank you. Truly. I don't know what would have happened." She offered a gentle, tired smile. "Shadow is good at showing up at the right time. May I see the pup?" Art carefully handed the small body to her. She expertly examined the dog, touching its neck, its legs, its trembling body. "He's terrified, but I don't think anything is broken. He needs a vet immediately, though. That neck injury." "I'll take him," Art stated instantly. "I'll take him right now." She looked at him with a mix of respect and concern. "Are you sure you can care for him? If not, I know shelters that." Art cut her off, surprised by the strength of his own resolve. "He stays with me." And in that moment, clutching the still shaking puppy, whose eyes now held something like trust, Art felt an emotion he hadn't felt in years, a sense of purpose. The Animal Clinic, Pet Wellness Center, was a clean, modest building 15 minutes from the park, its walls painted with animal murals. Art walked in, holding the puppy as if it were spun glass. The young receptionist with round glasses immediately sensed the emergency. "Is this an emergency?" She was already on her feet. "He's injured," Art explained breathlessly. Putting it into words made everything more real, the anger resurfacing. The veterinarian appeared in less than 2 minutes. Her name tag read Dr. Miller. She looked to be in her 40s, with streaks of gray in her dark hair, steady hands, and experienced eyes. Gently, she took the puppy into her arms and led the way to an examination room. Art paced the waiting room. His legs were still shaking, not just from fear, but from the spur-of-the-moment decision he had made. He had been alone for 5 years since his wife, Helen, passed away. His kids had their own families and lives. The house was too quiet, too big. Perhaps that was why he had reacted the way he had in the park. Perhaps that was why he couldn't just look away and keep walking. "Mr. Peterson," Dr. Miller called from the door. He went inside. The puppy was slightly calmer on a cushioned table. There was still fear in his eyes, but not the sheer desperation from earlier. "He's about 3 months old," Dr. Miller said, stroking the Malamute pup's fluffy head. "Mostly Alaskan Malamute, or at least a high percentage. He's malnourished and dehydrated, and he has bruises on his neck and ribs. No fractures, but clearly abused." The anger returned, a hot, suffocating feeling. "That bastard. We need to report this to the police," she continued, her tone gentle but firm. "Animal cruelty is a crime. Can you tell me what happened?" Art told her everything: the park, the man, the violence, the woman with the German Shepherd. The vet noted every detail, shaking her head with a look of combined outrage and fatigue. This wasn't the first story she'd heard like this, and probably not the last. "Are you certain you want to keep him?" she asked after finishing her notes. "Yes. He's going to need care. Regular checkups, vaccinations, good food, and love, a lot of love, to overcome the trauma." Art looked at the pup. The small creature looked back. There was something in its eyes, a silent question, maybe hope. "Will you hurt me, too?" "He'll have everything he needs," Art said. And for the first time in years, he felt like he was doing something truly important. Dr. Miller smiled. "Let's start with the basics. He needs N4 today, and I'll prescribe some pain medication. Come back tomorrow to start the vaccinations." "What will you name him?" "Finn," Art said without thinking. "His name is Finn." The pup, now named Finn, raised his head slightly at the sound of the word. The movement squeezed Art's heart. So small, so fragile, yet already trusting him. Already knowing he was safe. 2 hours later, Art returned home with Finn wrapped in a blanket borrowed from the clinic. The house was a modest ranch, with a living room, a kitchen, and a small, well-kept yard. Family photos lined the walls: his wedding, the kids when they were little, Helen smiling on that beach trip years ago. He made a makeshift bed out of an old blanket near the sofa, placed a bowl of clean water, and opened a can of special food the vet had sold him. Finn hesitantly sniffed, but hunger won out. He ate slowly, as if he couldn't quite believe the food was truly his. Art sat on the sofa, watching. When the pup finished eating and drinking, he stumbled over to the makeshift bed and collapsed, exhausted. Minutes later, he was asleep, though sometimes he twitched in his sleep, his legs jerking as if he were still running from something. "You're safe now, little guy," Art whispered, pulling the blanket over him. "No one will touch you again." The house didn't feel empty anymore for the first time in a long time. He picked up the phone and called his eldest son, David. "Dad? Is everything okay?" "I have news, David. I got a dog today." A silence. "Seriously? But you always said you didn't want a pet." "I know. But this one needed me." And Art told him the whole story. David listened quietly, and when his father finished, his voice was filled with emotion. "You did the right thing, Dad. Mom would be proud." Art felt his eyes prickle. "I think so too." After hanging up, he sat on the sofa, watching the sleeping puppy. He didn't know what the future held. Caring for a traumatized animal wouldn't be easy, he knew that. But looking at Finn, small, brave, scarred, but still willing to trust, Art understood something fundamental. He hadn't just rescued a dog that day in the park. Maybe the dog had rescued him, too. The first night was hard. Finn woke up 3 times, whimpering and twitching, searching for something familiar in a brand new world. Each time, Art ignored the ache in his back and the fatigue, getting up to sit on the floor and gently stroke the fluffy, golden tan fur, repeating the same mantra. "It's okay. You're safe. Dad's here." The third time, Finn snuggled against his feet, finally falling asleep. Art sat on the cold floor until morning. When he finally stood up, his back protested, but it didn't matter. The pup was asleep. The pup trusted him. The first few weeks were a constant learning experience. Finn was afraid of everything: loud noises, sudden movements, even unexpected shadows. One time, Art dropped a frying pan in the kitchen, and the pup disappeared, hiding under a table and trembling for nearly an hour. "I'm sorry, little guy," Art whispered, lying on the floor and slowly extending his hand. "I was clumsy. No one is going to hurt you here." But there was also pure joy, moments of such intensity they melted his heart. Like the time Finn wagged his tail when Art walked into the room, or a week later when he found the courage to play with an old tennis ball, hopping clumsily in the yard. "Look at you," Art laughed, clapping his hands. "An athlete already." His daily routine changed completely. The Art who used to sleep late, spending the day watching TV or tinkering in the garden, now had a schedule. Meals at 7, noon, and 6. Short walks in the morning and afternoon. A weekly vet visit. And time to pet Finn whenever he needed comfort. The neighbors began to notice. Mrs. Tanaka next door showed up one day with a rawhide bone over the fence. "I heard you got a puppy, Art," she smiled, "for the little guy." "Thank you, Mrs. Tanaka. That's very kind of you." "Oh, it's nothing. But this has been good for you too, hasn't it? You look better, more lively." Art didn't know what to say, but he knew she was right. Something in him was different. He had a reason to wake up, a reason to plan, a reason to smile. But not everything was smooth. Finn's emotional scars were deep, and there were bad days. Days when he wouldn't eat, when he huddled in a corner, his eyes vacant, staring at a past Art could only imagine. On those days, all Art could do was be near him, offering reassurance without pressure. One afternoon, David came over with his wife, Lena, and their 2 children, Ethan, 8, and Chloe, 5. The children were thrilled to see Finn. "Grandpa. He's so cute." Chloe squealed, starting to run towards him. "Easy, honey," Art gently cautioned his granddaughter. "He's still getting used to people." David knelt down, slowly extending his hand. Finn hesitated, sniffed, and, surprisingly, licked his fingers. It was a small moment, but a meaningful one. Trust was being built, brick by brick. "You're doing an amazing job taking care of him, Dad," Lena said, touched. "We can see how much better he is." "Slow progress," Art replied, but inside, he felt immense pride. Not just in Finn's recovery, but in his own finding a way back into life. That evening, after everyone had left, Art sat in the yard with Finn on his lap. The sky was full of stars, the air cool, the silence peaceful. Finn," Art began, stroking his soft ear. "For the longest time, I thought the important part of my life was over. I raised my kids, worked my whole life, did what I was supposed to do. I thought I was just waiting now." The dog looked up at him with deep brown eyes. "But you showed me I still have plenty to do, plenty of life to live. Besides, I can't let you grow up alone. Someone has to teach you how to be the happiest dog in the world." Finn licked his face. Art laughed, a refreshing, heartfelt laugh, the kind he hadn't heard in years. However, during a routine weekly checkup at the vet's, Dr. Miller delivered news that changed everything. "Mr. Peterson, I need to talk to you about something serious." Her voice made his stomach drop. "We've been looking into Finn's abuse case, and we found something concerning. The man who assaulted him was reportedly seen back in that park." Art's blood ran cold. "What?" "Witness reports said a man matching his description was asking around about you and the dog. It seems he's still looking for Finn." The world seemed to tilt. Art looked at the puppy innocently playing with a toy in the corner of the room. All they had overcome, every small victory. The idea that the monster was still out there, searching, was unbearable. "He won't get near him," Art said, his voice trembling but laced with resolve. "I won't let him." "We've filed a report with the police, Drive," Miller explained. "But you need to be careful. Do not go to secluded places with Finn. And call us immediately if anything seems off." Art nodded, but anxiety swelled inside him like a ghost. He had thought the worst was over, that it was only about rebuilding, healing, and moving forward. The threat was still there. And for the first time since he'd held Finn in his arms in the park that day, Art felt true fear that he might not be able to protect this little life that had become his reason for living. Art became hyper-vigilant about everything: the cars driving slowly down the street, people who looked too long, shadows that moved strangely. He installed a doorbell chime and started locking the yard gate even during the day, things he hadn't done in the 40 years he'd lived there. Finn sensed the tension. Dogs always do. He clung to Art more than ever, following him from room to room, his small eyes watching every move. It was as if both of them were back to square one, with constant fear and vigilance. 3 days after the conversation at the clinic, late in the afternoon, the front gate creaked. Art was in the yard with Finn and heard the unmistakable metallic sound. His heart hammered. He scooped up the puppy and slowly moved to the side of the house. From there, he could peek out without being seen. A man was standing on the sidewalk, looking at the house. He was tall and powerfully built, but when he turned his face, Art realized it was just a delivery driver looking for the correct house number for a package. He let out a breath, feeling foolish. His hands were shaking. Finn licked his face as if to say, "Relax, I'm okay." "Sorry, little guy," he muttered. "Dad's getting jumpy." But his jumpiness was justified. That night, it happened. Art was washing the dinner dishes when Finn began to bark. It wasn't the joyful bark of wanting to play, nor the whimpering cry of fear. It was a high-pitched, insistent, warning bark. Art dried his hands and went to the living room. Finn was standing by the back door, body tense, nose pointed toward the fence at the back of the house. And then, Art heard it, footsteps. Someone was in the alleyway behind the house. His blood ran cold. He grabbed his cell phone and dialed 911, but before he could complete the call, the footsteps faded. Quick, deliberate. Had whoever been there left, or had they realized they'd been noticed? Art didn't sleep that night. He left all the lights on in the living room, sitting with Finn on his lap, the cell phone in his hand. Every sound of the night made his heart jump, the wind rustling the trees, a distant cat crying, a car passing by. The next morning, he called David. "Dad, you need to file a police report," his son said, worried. "This is harassment. It's intimidation." "I didn't see anyone, and there's no evidence." "It doesn't matter. Just file a report and get it on record, if anything happens." "Nothing will happen," Art said, trying to convince himself more than his son, but David was insistent. That afternoon, Art went to the police station. The officer who received him, Detective Lopez, looked to be in her mid-40s, with tired but sharp eyes. She listened intently to his story. "Mr. Peterson, I'll be frank. Animal cruelty cases tend to escalate. People who harm animals often have a history of violence. If this man is truly looking for you and the dog, he won't give up easily." "What should I do?" Art's voice sounded more desperate than he intended. "First, we'll try to identify him. Can you describe him?" Art closed his eyes, recalling that afternoon in the park, the details of the assailant's face he had tried to forget. 35 to 40 years old. Tall, strongly built. Tattoo on his left arm, a snake, I think. Short dark hair. A bit of a goatee. Small scar above his right eyebrow. Detective Lopez wrote everything down. "The witness who was with you, the woman with the German Shepherd. Do you have a name?" "No. It all happened too fast." "That's fine. We'll check the surveillance cameras from the park that day. In the meantime, install security cameras at your house. Even the cheap ones sold online will do. And change the dog's walking times. Don't let yourself get into a predictable routine." Art left the police station with a strange mix of relief from having taken action and terror from the realization of the problem's severity. He hadn't been imagining things. The threat was real. That night, David arrived with 2 security cameras. Father and son spent hours installing them, one facing the front of the house, the other facing the backyard. It wasn't the most high-tech system, but it could record movement and send alerts directly to Art's phone. "There," David said, testing it. "You'll know immediately if someone approaches." After his son left, Art sat on the sofa with Finn. The pup had grown in the few weeks, no longer so tiny, his coat healthy and glossy. The bruises were gone, and the trembling was less frequent. He was transforming into a happy dog. Art vowed that no one would ruin it. "You know, Finn," he said, scratching behind his ear. "When I was younger, your grandma Helen always said I was stubborn. Once I made up my mind, no army could change it." Finn tilted his head as if listening. "And I've made up my mind. You are going to grow up happy, safe, and loved. I'll do whatever it takes. That bastard will never get near you again." It was a vow to Finn, to himself, and perhaps to Helen, wherever she was listening. But at dawn that day, Art's cell phone vibrated with an alert from the front camera. He grabbed it with trembling hands, opened the app, and his blood ran cold. A figure was standing on the sidewalk, staring at the house. The image was dark, but he saw the tall, stocky, familiar silhouette. And slowly, deliberately, the figure waved, as if saying, "I know you are watching." Then, he turned and vanished into the night. Art hugged Finn tightly, his heart pounding, feeling not just fear, but hate, for the first time in a long time. The camera footage wouldn't leave Art's mind. He showed it to Detective Lopez early that morning. She examined the video carefully, pausing and zooming in, trying to pinpoint details. "It's him," Detective Lopez said. "The build finally matches the description. And this," she pointed to the screen where the figure was waving, "is deliberate intimidation. He wanted you to know you're being watched." "What do I do?" Art's voice sounded more desperate than he wanted. "First, do not leave the house alone at night. Next, if he appears again, do not confront him. Call us immediately. Third," she paused, her gaze heavy. "Do you have someone who can stay with you for a few days while we try to identify and locate this man?" "My son will come." "Good. Do that. And the dog, keep him inside. Not even a minute alone in the yard." Art nodded, but inside, the indignation grew. Why did he, at 68, after working hard, raising a family, and living as a good citizen, have to be threatened by a thug for an innocent puppy he couldn't abandon? David moved into his father's house that afternoon temporarily. He brought Lena and the kids, and the quiet house became a place full of life again. Ethan and Chloe were overjoyed with Finn. The dog, nearly 5 months old, played with them in the yard under constant supervision. "Finn, get the ball!" Chloe screamed, and Finn ran around, free, joyful, and truly happy for the first time since Art had adopted him. Seeing that both tore and mended Art's heart at the same time. He hadn't saved the pup to live in fear, hiding and always alert, but for a life like this, full of play, laughter, and love. That night, after the kids were asleep and Lena was watching TV in the living room, David and Art were talking in the yard. Finn, tired from playing, was sleeping at the old man's feet. "Dad," David said. "I've been thinking. Maybe we should find a bigger house, me, Lena, the kids, and you, and live together again. You wouldn't be alone." "No, David," Art said firmly. "I appreciate the thought, truly. But this is my home. Where I lived with your mother, where I raised you. I won't be driven out by one thug." "But your safety." "Safety comes from justice, David. It comes from the police catching that man and putting him where he belongs, behind bars." David sighed. He knew well that it was useless to try to change his father's mind. "Okay. But at least let me stay until this is resolved." "That, I agree too. Thank you." 3 days passed without incident. The cameras recorded nothing. The walks with Finn were peaceful. And Art was beginning to wonder if the man had given up. If he had realized it wasn't worth it. Then, the phone rang. It was late at night. Art answered without looking at the number, thinking it was David. "Hello?" Silence on the other end. But it wasn't an empty silence, it was heavy, deliberate. Someone was listening, waiting. "Who is this?" Art asked, his heart rate accelerating. A cracked, distorted voice, as if speaking through cloth, answered. "That dog is mine. I'm coming to get him, one way or another." The call ended. Art stood there, holding the phone in his trembling hand. Sensing the tension, Finn walked over and nudged his leg. David appeared at the door. "Dad? What's wrong?" "Him," Art's voice was hollow. "He called. Said he was coming back for Finn." David took the phone and immediately called the police station. Detective Lopez, despite the late hour, responded. When she heard about the call, her voice turned serious. "This changes things. Direct threat is a felony. I'll arrange for a patrol car to circle your house tonight. And tomorrow morning, we'll intensify the investigation." "Did the number show up?" "No, it was blocked." "We'll request a trace anyway. In the meantime, document everything. Every contact, every phone call, every strange person near your house." No one slept that night. David stayed in the living room, alert to every movement. Lena kept the children in their rooms, away from the windows. Art was in his bedroom with Finn, the door locked, his cell phone within reach. Every night sound made him jump. But the worst happened that morning when everything seemed quiet. Art had gone out to the corner bakery for bread, a 5-minute walk he had taken every day for 30 years. David was in the shower, Lena was making coffee, the children were still asleep, and Finn was sunbathing in the backyard without supervision for the first time in days. It was a lapse of only a few seconds. When Art returned, he heard a desperate, horrifying bark. He dropped the bread bag and ran. The backyard gate was open. And inside was Mitch Donnelly, the man from the park. He had Finn by the scruff of his neck, suspending the dog in the air. Finn was yelping, kicking his legs, his eyes wide with terror. "Let go of that dog!" Art roared. An anger he didn't know he possessed exploded from the depths of his chest. The man turned and smiled, a sick, triumphant grin. "Told you I'd be back for him." And everything happened too fast. Art didn't think, didn't consider the consequences, didn't care that he was 68 and the man was 30 years younger. He only saw Finn. He only heard the high-pitched shriek of fear. He only felt the need he had made: "No one will ever touch you again." He charged, pushing the man hard. Mitch Donnelly staggered and lost his balance. Finn fell to the ground, immediately scampering behind Art. The assailant groaned, righted himself, and his eyes turned venomous. "You're gonna regret that, old man." But before he could do anything, David appeared, and right behind him were the police officers from the patrol car Detective Lopez had dispatched to the neighborhood. Everything erupted in chaos: screams, the sound of handcuffs clicking, Finn's incessant barking. The man was subdued, still cursing and resisting, but it was over. When they finally led him away, Art collapsed onto the backyard floor. His legs couldn't hold him anymore. Finn burrowed into his arms, licking his face frantically. His small body was shaking, but he was safe, alive. "It's over," David whispered, embracing them both. "It's over, Dad. He won't be back." But for Art, shaking with adrenaline, hugging the puppy tightly to his chest, one thing was clear. He had been able to face everything, even his own fear, his own limits, his own age, for this small life he had chosen to save. It changed something deep within him. It was no longer a question of fear versus bravery, it was a question of love. The following days were strange. The police confirmed that the assailant, Mitch Donnelly, was a 38-year-old man with a criminal record, and he would be held. Detective Lopez explained that with the evidence, the camera footage, the traced phone call, the park witness, and the current arrest, the case was solid. "He will pay for all the charges, Mr. Peterson. Trespassing, harassment, animal cruelty. He won't be getting out anytime soon." It should have brought peace. And it did, but something else was happening in Art's heart. It took him a while to understand. He was changed. Not just the recovered sense of safety, but something deeper. For 3 weeks, he had lived on the edge. Vigilant, defensive, and determined. He had found a strength he thought he had lost with age, with loneliness, with the grief of losing Helen. And now that the threat was gone, that strength didn't vanish. It was still there, but its form had changed. It was no longer fear turned into courage, but purpose turned into fulfillment. Finn changed too. After the shock in the backyard, he clung to Art more than ever for several days. But it wasn't the terror of being hurt like in the beginning. It was bonding, love, and the recognition that this human had chosen to protect him, not once, but repeatedly and without hesitation. One afternoon, Art was sitting on the sofa when Finn climbed up next to him. This was unusual, he usually preferred to lie on the floor. The pup snuggled into him, resting his head on his lap, and let out a sigh. Just a sigh, but a deep one. The sigh of someone who finally felt completely at home. Art felt his eyes tear up and stroke the thick, now soft fur. Finn was completely different from the dirty, trembling puppy he had picked up in the park. "We did it, didn't we?" he murmured, more to himself than to the dog. "I saved you, and you saved me." That weekend, David came over, no longer for a temporary stay but a regular visit. He brought the grill, some beer, and the whole family. The backyard filled with laughter. Ethan and Chloe played with Finn, who was now big enough to run with them without fear of injury. "Dad, I've been thinking," David called Art aside. The tone made Art's stomach drop. "What is it?" "Nothing bad, relax. Lena and I were just talking, and we wanted to know if you'd be interested in doing something with this story, with Finn." Art frowned. "What do you mean?" "Well, there are so many animals like Finn who have been through things, and who don't have the luck to have someone like you to help. We thought maybe you could volunteer at a shelter, or help with an anti-cruelty campaign, use what happened to make a difference." The idea hit Art by surprise. He hadn't thought of turning that terrifying experience into something bigger. But the more he listened to David, the more it made sense. This was no longer just about Finn, it was about all the Finns in the world. "Let me think about it," he said, but inside, something was already germinating. That night, after everyone left, Art was searching on his phone: animal shelters in the city, rescue organizations, anti-cruelty campaigns. There was a world of people fighting for the cause he had unknowingly embraced that day in the park. And he wanted to be part of it. On Monday, he called a local shelter, Friends of Riverwood Shelter, run by a local NPO. The woman who answered, a kind volunteer named Carla, listened attentively to his story. Mr. Peterson, we always need volunteers, but you have something much more valuable, a true story. Something that can inspire others to act, to report, to not look away. I just did what anyone would do. No, Mr. Peterson. It's what everyone should do. But the truth is, most people close their eyes, pretend not to see, and walk past. You didn't walk past. That makes all the difference. 2 weeks later, Art made his first visit to the shelter. It was a large space, home to dozens of rescued dogs and cats, each with a story of abandonment, abuse, and survival. Walking through the kennels, Art felt his heart both break and warm. Carla introduced him to other volunteers, and when he told Finn's story, who now accompanied him on his visits, something magical happened. People were moved not just by the story, but by Art himself, his sincerity, his determination, and the love of the pup he had saved. Could you talk at my son's school? A volunteer asked. To teach the kids about respect for animals. I've never spoken in public, Art replied with an embarrassed laugh. Don't worry about it. Just tell your story and show them Finn. They will love it. And so he did. Later, he spoke at another school, a community gathering, a church group, always with Finn. The dog, unknowingly, became the ambassador of a cause. Art discovered he had a talent for it. He didn't use flowery language or prepared speeches, he simply told the truth, raw and sincere, with emotion. And people listened. Children, adults, and the elderly were all touched and engaged. I didn't do anything special, he always concluded. I just chose not to look away. And I ask you to do the same. Don't look away. If you see an animal suffering, act, report, help. Because you can change their life just as much as they can change yours. One night, driving home after another talk, Art smiled, Finn sleeping peacefully in the passenger seat. It wasn't a smile of satisfaction, but of contentment, of belonging. For 5 years after Helen's death, he had felt that his important role was over, that he was only existing, waiting. But Finn, the trembling, scarred, terrified puppy he couldn't pass by, showed him otherwise. His important role hadn't ended, it had just changed its form. Driving back to the house, looking at the dog sleeping peacefully in the car, Art understood the fundamental truth about salvation. It's not just about rescuing someone. It's about letting that someone rescue you. 6 months after that day in the park, Art's life was unrecognizable. The house that used to be silent was now constantly bustling with visitors, shelter volunteers, families interested in adoption, kids from the schools he had spoken at who wanted to meet Finn. The dog was a small local celebrity. Finn, now grown, was a beautiful Alaskan Malamute with a thick coat, gentle eyes, and a cuddly but mischievous personality. It was impossible to look at him and imagine the traumatized pup from the beginning, but the scars remained. Not the physical ones, those had long faded. The emotional ones. Finn still showed moments of fear, especially around loud men or sudden movements. But now, when it happened, he had something he didn't have before, the confidence of safety. He would run to Art, hiding behind his legs. That was enough. And Art was always there. The volunteer work naturally expanded. In addition to the talks, he was now helping with adoption events, visiting schools with Finn to teach responsible pet ownership, and even participating in support groups for people who had rescued abused animals. It's therapeutic, he told David one afternoon. Not just for me, but for the people I meet. We share stories, fears, and triumphs, and we realize we are not alone. David looked at his father with respect. Mom would be so proud of what you're doing, of the man you've become. I think she knew I needed this, Art said. A new purpose. One day, Carla from the shelter called with an unexpected proposal. Mr. Peterson, the city is launching a major anti-cruelty campaign. They want to use real people, and they thought of you and Finn as one of the main cases. Would you participate? He hesitated. Being in the public, I wasn't attractive to him. But he thought about how many people the campaign could reach, how many Finns could be saved if more people knew it was possible, necessary, and urgent to report abuse. I'll do it. The filming took place in the park, the very park where everything had started. Being there again was strange, emotional, but powerful. Art told his story in front of the camera, Finn sitting calmly beside him in the late afternoon sun, beautiful and confident. That day, I almost walked past, Art said to the camera, his voice determined but emotional. I thought, it's none of my business. I'm old. What can I do? But then I saw that small life, the desperation in its eyes, and I knew that if I did nothing, I would never be able to look at myself in the mirror again. The reporter asked, And if you could talk to someone who is hesitating to report animal abuse, what would you say? Art looked straight into the camera. Hesitation can take a life. But action can save two, the animals and your own. Because when you choose not to look away, when you decide to do the right thing even if you are afraid, you are changed. And I guarantee you, it is worth every second. The campaign launched a month later. Billboards across the city, social media videos, TV spots. Art and Finn's faces were everywhere, alongside the message, "Don't look away. Report abuse. Save a life." The response was overwhelming. His phone didn't stop ringing. People who wanted to know how to report, people telling their own rescue stories, people simply thanking him for his courage. One call left a particularly deep impression on Art. It was a young, anxious woman's voice. "Mr. Peterson, my name is Una. I saw your campaign, and I had to call you. Yesterday, I was passing through the plaza and saw a cat being kicked by some boys. Normally, I would have walked past, afraid of getting involved. But I remembered your story, Finn's story, and I couldn't. I went there, picked up the cat, and brought him home. He's here now. Sleeping on my sofa." The girl's voice broke. "I just wanted to say thank you. If it weren't for you, I would have been a coward, and this kitten would still be suffering." Art felt his heart clench. "Una, you saved that cat. Not me. But you showed me it was possible." After the call, Art sat in silence for a while. Finn came over and rested his head on his lap, as if sensing his owner needed comfort. "We did it, little guy," Art whispered, tears welling up. "We made a difference." The speaking engagements grew. Corporations began inviting him to talk about compassion and social responsibility. Universities invited him to speak to veterinary students. NPOs from other states asked him to share his story. And Art embraced it all. Not for recognition, that was never the purpose. But because every talk, every conversation, every shared story was an opportunity to plant a seed, to make one more person think twice before looking away. One afternoon, at the shelter helping with an adoption event, Art stopped at a sight. A girl about 12 years old was kneeling in front of a cage, gently talking to a terrified mixed-breed puppy. The pup was huddled in a corner, shaking, clearly traumatized. "He's afraid of me," the girl told her mother sadly. "Maybe he's not the dog for you, honey," the mother replied gently. But the girl didn't move. "No. He just needs time. He needs to know he's safe. Like Finn did." Art approached. "You know Finn's story?" The girl looked up at him, her eyes wide. "You're Mr. Peterson. And that's Finn." She pointed to the dog standing next to him. "I saw you on TV. You're why I wanted to come here today. To adopt a dog who needs help, just like you did." Art's heart melted. He knelt beside the girl. "Can I give you a piece of advice? Sometimes the most scared dogs are the ones who have the most love to give. They just need someone patient. Someone who won't give up on them. Just like you didn't give up on Finn." "That's right," the girl looked at her mother with a determined face. "I want this dog. I'll take him. And I'll be patient with him for as long as it takes." 2 hours later, Art watched the girl leave the shelter with the puppy in her arms. Still scared, still uncertain, but heading to a loving home. And he knew that moment, that single moment, was the reason for everything. It wasn't about him being a hero, it never was. It was about creating a chain reaction of empathy, action, and love. Understanding that saving one animal might seem like a drop in the ocean, but for that animal, it's the entire ocean. A year after that day in the park, Art was back in the same spot, but this time, he wasn't alone. Dozens of people, dogs, cats, and volunteers were there. It was the first Don't Look Away event he and Carla had organized to celebrate adoptions, raise awareness, and honor stories of overcoming adversity. Finn, now over a year old, stood next to Art on a makeshift stage. He surveyed the crowd with curiosity and composure. A far cry from the terrified pup who couldn't bear to look at strangers. "Thank you all for coming," Art began, his voice firm but emotional. "A year ago, I was walking in this park and heard a cry. And that cry changed my life. Not because I saved a dog, but because that dog saved me." The crowd listened, attentive and silent. For a long time, I thought my life had given everything it had to give, and I was just waiting. But Finn showed me that as long as we live, we have purpose, we have the power to make a difference, and we have the responsibility not to look away. He paused and looked at the dog next to him. Finn looked back, his gaze holding everything: trust, love, gratitude. Today, thanks to this event, more than 50 animals have been adopted. 50 lives that were waiting in the shelter. And now they have homes, families, and love. This is not a small thing. This is everything. The applause was deafening, but Art, unused to the attention, waved shyly and stepped off the stage. Afterwards, many people approached him, thanking him, sharing their adoption stories, and asking for advice. And he answered every one of them. Because every conversation, every connection, every life touched, mattered. At the end of the day, as the park grew quiet, David showed up with his family. Chloe ran up and hugged Finn, who wagged his tail happily. Ethan was more serious, holding something in his hand. "Grandpa, I wrote an essay about you for school," the boy said, handing him a paper. "I want you to read it." Art took it, touched. The essay began. "My grandpa is a hero. Not a flying hero or a superhero with powers. He's a hero who doesn't give up. A hero who chooses to do the right thing even when it's hard. And Grandpa taught me that anyone can be a hero, as long as you don't look away." Tears fell before he could stop them. Art hugged his grandson, speechless for a few seconds. When the words finally came, they were hoarse. "You're already a hero, Ethan. Like your sister, like your dad and mom. Like anyone who chooses love over indifference." That night, Art was sitting in the yard with Finn. The dog was lying at his feet, relaxed and confident. The sky was full of stars, the air cool, the silence comfortable. "Do you know you changed everything?" Art said, scratching behind his ear. "Not just for me. For so many people." Finn let out a deep sigh of contentment. "I wonder what would have happened if I had walked past that day. If I had let fear win. You wouldn't be here. And I would still be in that empty house, waiting for life to end." Silence, not painful, but filled with gratitude and recognition. Grandma Helen used to say you never know where one choice will lead. That one moment can change an entire life. And she was right. That moment in the park, that cry I heard. It was you calling me. Not just to save you, but to save myself. Art stood up. His back ached with age, but his heart felt lighter than it had in years. Finn followed him inside, and they settled on the sofa, their sacred nightly ritual. His phone vibrated. A message from Una, the girl who had called months ago. "Mr. Peterson, the kitten I saved had babies, and they are all going to loving homes. It's all because of you. Thank you for teaching me not to look away." He smiled, replied with a heart emoji, and put the phone down. Then, he looked around the house. The photos of Helen and his family, Finn's toys scattered on the floor, the awards from the shelter on the wall. It was no longer the empty house of a waiting man. It was a home full of purpose, meaning, and love. "We did it, little guy," Art murmured, leaning back against the sofa with Finn next to him. "We really did." And that night, Art slept deeply for the first time in a long time. Without worry, without fear, without regret, because he had learned the most important lesson life can teach. Saving someone doesn't make you a hero. It makes you fully, deeply, beautifully human. And sometimes, the life you save is the one that saves you back, not from danger, but from something much worse, a life without meaning, an existence without love, a heart that forgot how to beat strongly.